nurses have a dual responsibility. Within ANA, we protect, advance, and advocate for nurses, and we also advocate for the people that we serve. And sometimes those choices are indistinguishable, and we may shift quickly or over time as we place importance on one or the other, as we tackle our core activities. And as you look at the picture, you may first see the old woman whose face occupies the whole of the frame with a large chin and a very large bumpy nose. Or you may see a very young woman with a bonnet who is looking away to the back. But sometimes our eyes play tricks on us. But our views change, and each of us may see things differently, or you may just give it a passing glance and say, oh, I only ever saw one picture. I don't know what you're talking about. And I think that reflects our diversity of thought and the changing world that we live in. Sometimes it takes a while for that vision to stand out. But one thing that's true for all of us as leaders in the American Nurses Association is we see the full picture. And what's really important now is that we are leading in a changing world. We've been very mission-driven, and we build on a strong legacy. From our past, we celebrate the strength and wisdom of ANA's founders, who you see on the slide, and the many programs that shaped our first century. I mean, ANA has done amazing things for many, many years. As you know, we're celebrating our 120th birthday. And it is on the shoulders of these amazing women that we can look back and say, we have really come a long way and we continue to advance. From women's suffrage to setting standards of education and practice, to establishing economic and general welfare programs, to penning the social policy statement, the code of ethics for nurses with interpretive statements, creating a credentialing agenda for the nation, ANA has been serving nurses and the public for 120 years. Recently, we've been really flexing our muscle around a number of issues that are very important as we think about our role to protect nurses and the environment that they practice in and our ability to provide care that keeps patients safe. We've been promoting safe staffing, both in our legislative agenda, but throughout the establishment of the culture of safety in the places where nurses work. We've accomplished a number of position statements and education around keeping nurses safe, protecting them from harm, eliminating violence and incivility and bullying in the workplace. We continue to advocate for a robust workforce. I worry about the future workforce. We have conflicting data in our major databases in the Department of Labor and the Health Resources Services Administration. We have anecdotal data that tells us we have really pronounced shortages of nurses in some geographic areas of the country and some of our organizations trying to deliver care. I worry that we aren't retooling fast enough to be able to get nurses who are prepared and comfortable working in some of the newer environments as we move care more into the community and community-based organizations. And we know we have these additional new issues that we'll have to address, and we are working on them. We've strengthened our membership in our CSNAs. We've been focusing on attracting new and recent graduates into our membership. We've taken a big step toward making sure that nurses can participate in protecting their own health and take ownership of their own health. And you have been learning about the Healthy Nurse Grand Challenge, which will be a legacy unparalleled on the part of the American Nurses Association to raise the health of nurses and all of the people whose lives we touch. And we've exploded our presence in social media. We've also advanced quality measurement. This is a world that many of us may not live in, but it is really fundamental to changing the economics of healthcare. If we're going to stop paying for procedures and interventions and pills, we have to be able to pay for quality. So nursing is front and center in that work as well. End of life is part of the continuum across the lifespan, that nurses are integral to making sure that people have the right kind of care, have choices that are respected, and get the consolation and comfort that they need. Nurses are the key providers. We've been focusing on what does it take to have new teamwork? How do nurses contribute to that? And how do we get recognized for not only the leadership role that we have in teams, but how we are the glue that keeps things together, and how we have not only the knowledge but the skill to be able to interact with different providers and the people that we serve. These are only a few of our accomplishments and continued agendas. Now, last week we were again called to lead when a single gunman targeted the LGBTQ community and killed 49 people, as we've all heard and as we've all had remorse. This devastating act of violence joins an unfortunate litany of similar events. We've heard our president say, you know, I don't want to have to get up to this microphone again to apologize to the people of this nation, to mourn with the people of this nation. And it's why 170 Democratic members of the House of Representatives, joined by nearly 35 senators, began their historic sit-in in the House floor Wednesday night. This has been a historic week. As the largest single group of healthcare professionals, nurses are caring for those victimized by gun violence and are forced to confront the physical and emotional consequences of these senseless acts. I think you all saw the headlines, or have seen many headlines, or the testimonials and the accolades that have gone to the nurses in Orlando, the recognition that the physician force in the Orlando Regional Center gave to the nurses. They sang the praises of the nurses who stepped up. Not a surprise to us. We knew they would be there. We knew they would come in force, and we knew they would be the ones that would provide the holistic approach to care, not just the fix them up and help them get reconnected with families, but really deal with the grieving, to be able to recognize that this was an extraordinary circumstance. So we will be bringing a declaration to you tomorrow for approval that reaffirms our stance on common sense gun control and really the need to stop the violence. As you know, we've called for repealing the language that blocks the Centers for Disease Control's ability to do research on gun violence. It's unconscionable in this country of what we assume are educated people that we would stop the ability to do research on such an important health and community health issue. So I hope you were able, for those of you that went to Capitol Hill yesterday, I hope you were able to get some traction on that message, and we anticipate that we should be able to get some positive votes on that as we go into the future. So we will be seeking, again, common sense gun control legislation. No one wants to take away the Second Amendment rights. And interestingly enough, that when the Supreme Court has looked at this issue over the years, it was never intended that the Supreme Court rulings would actually protect individuals to own and carry guns. It really was under the umbrella of the militia. So when Chief Justice Berger was the head of the Supreme Court, he looked back as the rulings changed and said, this is really not where the country should have been headed. It was a big surprise. So as we see these political views and policies change, again, we have to be ready to act. We have to say what is right for today's world. So we also support better background checks, waiting periods, and the inability for people to get assault weapons if they're, again, compromised in any way. So we want to stop the violence. Now, 2 years ago, I shared my 5 personal priorities with you to enhance the A&A agenda. And the first one was expanding the top-of-mind recognition of nurses. We want to know that when the public thinks about health and health care or illness care, but when they think about where do they get advice about their health, we want nurses to be top of mind. We also want any decision-making group to say, we have to have nurses at the table. When we have committees or important meetings about health care, we absolutely have to have nurses, not just one. We need multiple nurses because that voice of nursing needs to permeate the discussion. I also wanted us to focus on bringing recent graduates into our membership across our CSNAs so that we could strengthen the ranks as we recognize not only a multi-generational workforce, but the need to replenish our membership with new up-and-coming leaders and nurses who want to be engaged and really bring that current voice. Workforce planning, as I've already mentioned, we're living in a world that is changing rapidly. Skills are needing to change, locations of care are shifting, and we need to be ready. We've done some work in looking at the RN role in primary care together with the American Academy of Nursing. We're also, again, recognizing with the Academy of Ambulatory Care Nurses that we want to make sure nurses know what does it require to be in those roles and how do we help nurses prepare to make those changes. Also want to focus on partnering with consumer and patient advocacy groups, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that. This has been something that's been front and center in my mind for several years, because what I recognized was that most of the time healthcare policymakers say, well, we're going to ask the doctors what they think about this. We're going to ask them, what's important about health policy. But the number two group they've been going to is consumers. Not nurses, it's consumers. They want to know what that consumer voice is saying. So it's really important for us to think about how we strengthen our voice together with a partner, with consumers who trust us and where we can have mutually beneficial relationship. And then continuing our work with quality, safety, and the advancement through technology. Now, I'm going to focus on two of these in a little bit more detail today. Nurses being top of mind for inclusion in decision making, and then strengthening our relationship with consumers to create the changes that we all want to see in healthcare. Both of these two goals, again, truly require us to lead in a changing world. We have to make sure that the public and any other, everybody's in the public, but public and policymakers see us as indispensable. One of the things that frustrates me, and I'm sure it frustrates you, is that people think of us when they're in the hospital. It's like, oh, that nurse, they were so great. That nurse gave me my pain medication. That nurse helped me get up and walk to the bathroom. That nurse cleaned up my vomit, whatever it is, That's what they're remembering. That's what they're talking about. They're not thinking of the 100 acts and deep thought that the nurse had to think about planning their care, to think about understanding the family dynamics, to think about the ramifications of what needs to be considered when they go home, to understand someone's fear, to be able to address their learning needs, to be able to go back to the healthcare team and say, you've missed the point here. Here's what this patient wants and needs. So much of what we do is invisible to the nurse, to the patient, therefore invisible to other decision makers, invisible to policymakers. But we need to be the resource that everyone craves. And as we think about broadening our presence outside of the traditional four walls organizations, we want to have people saying, where's my nurse? My nurse is the person I go to when I need advice. The nurse is the person I go to for all of my care. And the nurse will know if I need somebody else, if I need a social worker, if I need a nutritionist, and maybe I might need a physician somewhere along the way. But the nurse needs to be that central person. And advocacy has always been our core business, whether it's focused on the nurse or the consumer or our patients. And advocacy is really how we express our leadership. Last year, I talked about leadership and said, leadership can be dangerous. You got to take risks. You got to stick your neck out. I can remember working in an organization where it was a team of maybe about 7 or 8 nursing directors, and our chief nursing officer was truly dangerous herself. She was very ineffective, very insecure. And our group of directors all banded together and said, we're going to do our jobs. We're going to keep the organization moving. And we're going to have to challenge some of the issues with this woman. What I found was that I was always the one speaking up. I was always the one sticking my neck out. And I would turn around and they were like way behind me. Way, way, way behind me. So it can be dangerous and it can take courage. But I believe the nurses in A&A are all courageous. But sadly, yes, thank you. Not all nurses want to step up to become leaders and take on this responsibility. In a survey, less than 12.5% of nurses said they aspire to leadership roles. Now, we need to understand, is that a statement on the daunting courage and the effort that it requires? Or is it a change in how nurses are being socialized? I mean, I think we need to understand this and work on it. So what makes all of us in this room different? Many of you know I've grown up in A&A. Starting from my days as president of the National Student Nurses Association, where I was actually on A&A committees, supported by colleagues and many of whom were sitting at that past president's table. A&A and its members stand up and speak out, and that's one of our strengths. We speak out to influence those who can help us improve healthcare with positive action. We educate those who truly don't understand what we do, and that's a constant activity. We inform those who ignore the facts. This is becoming a bigger and bigger issue. And as we were talking yesterday at the organizational affiliate meeting, you know, we've got 20 to 25 years worth of data that we talk about when we go to present an argument. It's time to just claim the territory. We just need to say, this is what nurses do, this is what nurses need and want, this is what nurses are going to contribute to healthcare in this society. We've all carried stacks of articles and written papers that we've brought into CEOs, CFOs, offices, community leaders. We've got to say the data are there, but here's what we're going to do. We speak up to persuade employers who are ignorant and who don't cherish their workforce. You know, the rhetoric, oh, our employees are our greatest asset. Well, you know what? Put your money where your mouth is. We need to think of nurses and the nursing workforce as an investment, not a cost. We've got to change this conversation. And we need to continue to spread the word about the value of nurses and how they affect the patient experience. We stand up and speak out for maintaining and protecting our moral compass. For RNs who are timid or who don't have a voice. For those people who don't know how to challenge the status quo, and we speak out for any others who need our help. 17% of the United States population lives in poverty. When I shared that number at a recent presentation for the International Council of Nurses, you could hear the gasps in the audience. The rest of the world think everybody in the US is privileged and everybody, you know, is above average in terms of income. There is not the recognition that we have real problems that we suffer with as well. And we are the advocates for those individuals. We stand up and speak out with consumers who deserve health care as a right. Our colleagues who also want to lead in a changing world. And those who understand that we protect the patient experience and are trusted to serve without prejudice. So we safeguard the profession and the public, and we've been doing that for 120 years. We've internalized the code of ethics, our standards, and our commitment to society. So it's really through service to our CSNAs, our IMD, and ANA that we're leading to change the world. Now, I share with you a favorite cartoon. I used to have a t-shirt, and I wore it so often that it got so many holes I had to throw it out. Scott Adams, I think, is just masterful at his Dilbert comic, and this is a saying that I think, you know, applies in so many situations. Change is good, you go first. Oh, I love change, love change. Not me, you can do it. Okay, and this is a dynamic that we deal with all the time. But it's our responsibility to create the conditions that will make change successful. This is our strength as ANA colleagues. So one of the things that I often tell groups, particularly if they are not nursing groups, where we've got others in the room that think they're always in charge, is I say, you know what? Look to your left, look to your right. And if this is a discussion about healthcare and decisions that need to be made, if you're not seeing nurses to your left and to your right, there is a significant voice missing from the conversation, and you have to address it. So we need to continue to educate all of our audiences about creating that preference for nurses so that we are always at top of mind. We're calling out groups that don't include nurses. We've been successful with other nursing colleagues in the Tri-Council and other organizations about saying, nurses need to be represented more in the committees that are put together at the National Academy of Medicine. We've been able to get changes made. We have a rapid process for deliberation of bringing names together for appointments to federal committees, and we've been very successful over the last couple years because of that networking. So all of these efforts are helping make sure that we've got nurses in decision-making positions. We're also working with the National Nurses on Boards Coalition to make sure that nurses are board ready. We're establishing new relationships with other interprofessional organizations that really get it, they understand the value of nursing, to be able to advance our mutually beneficial agendas. We're not waiting. Again, it's time to just stake our claim and make sure that we're getting seats at the table. So we've worked with groups like the National Patient Safety Foundation, the American Psychological Association, eHealth Initiative, also American Medical Informatics Association, and the list goes on. But we have a long way to go. We have a paternalistic society, and we live in the shadow of our physician colleagues. Not all of them, but there's too many of them that still want to restrain nurses and the voice of nursing in this country. And we've seen that with the rancor over the VA's efforts to provide full practice authority for advanced practice nurses. There is unparalleled historic reverence for the MD credential in the United States. We need to create that same reverence for the RN credential. Now, one of the people who many of you will remember who was near and dear to us is Donna Deers. And Donna was the former dean of the Yale School of Nursing. She was an Academy living legend, and she was very provocative and known as someone with very forward-thinking ideas, and she advocated for advanced practice nursing and active involvement in public policy. In 1984, she wrote an article that is one of the few hard copy paper articles that I keep. It's all yellow. It's in one of my boxes in my storage room, called "To Profess to Be a Professional." And in the article, she observes the following full quote: "The world simply has an outdated view of nursing, and our task is not so much to defend our thoughts to our work, but simply to yawn and patiently teach people what nursing is today. Seeing the task that way makes it a whole lot easier, for the pressure is then not on nurses to interpret so that others can understand us and our issues. It is on others to understand, for they are so pitifully unknowing." 30 years ago. So we have made strides in professionalism, without a doubt, but I think we'd all painfully agree that the view of nursing is still outdated. It has not caught up with who we are and what we do. So before Donna died in 2013, she was asked this question: would you pursue nursing again if you were choosing your professional direction today? And part of her response spotlights the barriers that I think are still in existence. She said, "Would I have chosen nursing if I had known how deep the sexism and nurseism and public discrimination and invisibility are, and how much fun it would be to fight those monsters?" So our job is to continue to fight those monsters and recruit others to help us do that. So I want to come back to the theme of consumers. Consumers are critical to our future, our ability to transform healthcare. We need them to recognize that the chronic diseases that plague our country are bankrupting our country, but also bankrupting their lives, their quality of life. So we need a preference in their hearts and minds about the value of nurses. In the future, again, we want them to say, "Where's my nurse? My nurse is the one I go to." So we want to work together to make sure that the RN is the linchpin in patient-centered transformative care. We need to change the conversation, and we need to go in a new strategic direction. So again, that means new relationships. And ANA has always taken the lead forward for nursing, and we're going to continue to lead to the future. We're going to make changes over the next several years because we have to have a bold new journey. As I had the chance to talk with many of you in the regional meetings last night, we shared a little bit on the strategic plan, so I want to make sure that I've provided that overview to everyone today. We began our work to think about where are we going in the future with a session on strategic innovation. And we knew that we needed to brainstorm about the future. We worked with a group called Innovation Point, and they helped us to bring in 7 thought leaders that were from all different aspects of business and healthcare and the insurance industry and consumer-focused areas. And they helped us look at not only what are the trends, but what are our core strengths and responsibilities? What are the pain points for nurses? And so we said, what is the space that we want to fill in the future? And we need to be assured that we have our leadership role in a very crowded healthcare environment. So let me open a window to some of these new strategic directions. Strategic innovation is not traditional strategic planning. You know, strategic planning, everybody has one. You may have read articles that also say strategic planning is dead. Well, strategic planning is very incremental and linear. Strategic innovation, you want to have to entertain new ideas that are both non-traditional as well as conventional, but you want business breakthroughs. So if our goals are to drive growth, transform culture, and develop leadership, strategic innovation provides us an advantage. It doesn't allow us to maintain the status quo. So the process starts with the end in mind. And it means that we have to identify opportunities with a high degree of sustainable success. And that's what your board of directors has been working on. We wanted to break the rules while still building the core of our activities, but we wanted to see ideas turn into breakthroughs. So in the process of strategic innovation, we combine creative inspiration together with reliable process to have then a disciplined implementation. We had a number of provocative thought leaders that worked with us, as I mentioned, and they helped us color outside the lines. You know, it's very easy to get stuck in what you do all the time, but we really got everybody out of their comfort zone. We also knew that we had to preserve and expand the bedrock of what we do and assert ourselves within the value equation that you're all familiar with. Quality, safety, service, spending wisely, and making sure that we leverage our trusted image. We want to make sure that we're learning from other industries and as we lead the shift to wellness, not just for nurses, but all of the people whose lives we touch. We also want to be sure we claim care coordination. That is our territory. We may share it with others, but that is our territory. And we need to redesign the workflows to do that. We're assessing our drivers of patient experience, another big part of the value proposition where we have to articulate the value of the registered nurse. We need to be able to say we can address what matters to you as a person. We also know that we have answers to questions that patients have about quality of life, about choices they have to make. This is all part of a nurse's toolkit. So we're talking about doing more than just tinkering with our system. We're really looking at leveraging the effective power of 3.6 million registered nurses to create a better healthcare system for tomorrow. I believe, and I think you join me in believing, that nurses are poised to help consumers, to promote health and well-being, to coordinate care at all phases of life, to eliminate health disparities, and reduce the disease burden. Nurses present the greatest value on our teams, particularly as we think about what we can contribute with a shift from illness to wellness. So as we think about this strategic innovation, let me just share a couple outcomes that you'll read in the document. The first is we have revised our vision statement. And the vision is, as you see on the screen, all nurses as a powerful, unified force in engaging consumers in transforming health and healthcare. We want to have this bold vision. So we also needed, to revise our set of values in order to support this vision. So just briefly, I'll mention them. So the first is to be service-focused. And again, remembering the duality of who we serve. Service-focused to our members and service-focused to those to whom we provide care and guidance. To be innovative, leading into the future. To be data-driven, use qualitative and quantitative insights. To be impactful, adding the greatest value to what we do. Be effective on our operations and be inclusive, one of our core values. Our 3 goals, and you will see these in a lengthier form in the document we're going to provide to you. The first one is to reach every nurse that we can reach, to engage them with ANA. Many as members, but even more so, just think about how we could expand if we had millions of nurses that had a relationship with ANA. To stimulate and disseminate innovations that increase the engagement of nurses is part of saying we have to focus on nurses who are being innovative. We have to support those innovative processes. And the third is to leverage the ANA enterprise to position nurses as the integral partners to consumers on their healthcare journey. Now remember, strategic innovation starts with the end in mind, and we have to create the conditions for success. And that means multiple moves, not just what are the tactics that we're going to do in the next 12 months, but thinking ahead like the moves on a chessboard. It's all about strategy, and it's all about planning for the end game. This is a 3-year plan, but this is actually a multi-year vision. So we want to measure the success for what we're doing for ANA, what we can do for others, and how that impacts the changes in the healthcare system. We want to expand our footprint and reach of nurses. If even 2 million more nurses were plugged into ANA, just think about that impact for each of our states and our national reputation. Now, not all nurses even know that ANA exists. And so we have to not only bring them knowledge, we have to change outdated notions of who we are and what we do as well. But we want to reach a scale of force to be reckoned with, and we can with the current number of nurses that are out there. But it will take collective leadership on all our parts. If we want a bigger voice in healthcare and we want bold growth to become top of mind, we have to reconceive our relationship with our consumers and take some risk and abandon our fears of change. But I know we can do this. I think we have the fearless leadership capacity in this room to do this. There will be some trade-offs. We can't continue to do everything we've been doing. We're going to have to make some choices. But I believe we can reorient our work in a way that supports these new goals, at the same time preserves the most important aspects of what we've been doing for 120 years. So I have hope. Hope is the antidote of fear. And I hope that you do too. Because I've seen your great work. I've had the privilege of traveling to many of the states over the last 2 years, interacting with many of our members, and you have tremendous enthusiasm and drive to improve not only healthcare, but the life of those we serve. So as I look around the room, as well as think about the interactions I've had with our international colleagues, I've seen the fact that nurses change lives. We are an incredibly important linchpin to so many people in our healthcare system. We care about everyone's future, and we care about ANA's healthy future. So the board will continue to refine the actions that are in the strategic plan. We're protecting our core mission to serve both constituencies, and we are very pleased to be able to share a copy of that plan with you. As I mentioned last night, we'll be bringing it with more details to the Leadership Summit meeting at the end of the year, and it will be then ready to go the first of the year. But just to close, just to say, you know, this is our time to create a new set of footprints. We really want to change nursing's impact and imprint on the future of nursing. This is our time, and you are the leaders who can change the world. Thank you very much.